It was a sunny afternoon, and the park was alive with the usual sounds of children playing, birds chirping, and families enjoying their day. Among the crowd, a little girl walked hand in hand with her grandmother, her eyes wide and curious. She noticed something unusual, a small commotion near a secluded corner of the park. Her instincts told her something wasn't right. The girl's heart pounded, but she stayed calm. She had been taught to act smartly in tricky situations, and today that lesson was about to be tested. She knew she couldn't handle this alone, but help was nearby. Just a few steps away, Steven Seagal, the martial arts legend and actor, was sitting on a bench, quietly observing the world around him. Dressed casually, blending in like any other visitor, he seemed unaware of the unfolding danger. Or so everyone thought. Thinking quickly, the little girl found a clever way to get his attention. She raised her hand subtly, signaling him in a way only someone paying attention would notice. It wasn't a loud cry or an obvious shout. It was a discreet gesture, a silent call for help. Her tiny fingers formed a signal, and her eyes met Steven's briefly, full of hope and trust. Steven noticed immediately. His sharp eyes and trained instincts recognized the urgency in the girl's expression. Even though nothing seemed out of place to the casual onlooker, he could sense the hidden tension. Without saying a word, he stood up, his movements calm but deliberate. He scanned the area, noting exits, bystanders, and anything that could pose a threat. The little girl felt a mix of relief and nervousness. She had done the right thing, reached out for help, but now she had to trust that help would arrive in time. Around them, people continued their day, unaware of the quiet drama unfolding in front of them. What this little girl did next caught Steven Seagal's full attention, and shocked everyone watching. Every moment stretched, the tension rising as Steven began moving toward her, calm, collected, and ready. The park, once a place of ordinary leisure, was now the stage for an extraordinary act of bravery and quick thinking. And for the little girl, the quiet gesture she made would change everything. Steven Seagal didn't hesitate for a second. The moment he caught the little girl's signal, his body reacted before his mind even finished processing it. Years of training had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now every instinct was telling him something was wrong. He walked toward her slowly, not wanting to alert anyone who might be watching. His face stayed calm, almost expressionless, but his eyes were scanning everything. He noticed a man standing a little too close to the girl and her grandmother. The man pretended to look at his phone, but his eyes kept darting toward them. Something about his behavior felt off. Steven adjusted his path, making it look natural, as if he were just taking a casual stroll through the park. As he got closer, he made brief eye contact with the girl and gave a tiny nod. It was his way of saying, "I see you. You're not alone." The girl's shoulders relaxed slightly, and for the first time in minutes, she felt a bit safer. The man noticed Steven approaching and shifted uncomfortably. He took a small step back, trying to blend into the crowd. That was all Steven needed to confirm his suspicion. Steven stopped a few feet away and spoke gently. "Hey there, young lady. Beautiful day, isn't it?" The girl nodded, understanding his plan. Her grandmother smiled politely, unaware of the danger but grateful for the friendly stranger. Steven kept his voice calm and natural, making it seem like a normal conversation. Behind his calm words, his mind was racing. He was positioning himself between the girl and the suspicious man, blocking any possible escape route. The crowd around them continued moving, unaware that something serious was unfolding. The man tried to slip away, but Steven casually shifted his stance, cutting him off. "Everything okay here, sir?" Steven asked, his tone friendly but firm. The man froze. Yeah. Just heading out," he muttered, clearly nervous. Steven held his gaze. Years of discipline and control radiated from him. The man swallowed hard, realizing he wasn't dealing with just anyone. Slowly, he backed away and disappeared into the crowd. Only when he was gone did Steven turn back to the girl. "You did the right thing," he said softly. "You were very brave." Tears welled up in her eyes, not from fear, but from relief. Her grandmother finally realized something serious had happened. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice shaking. Steven calmly explained, keeping details gentle so as not to scare the child. The grandmother hugged her tightly, whispering words of gratitude. If you're watching this right now, comment below which country and city you're watching from. Around them, a few bystanders had noticed the tension and started recording. Someone whispered, "Is that Steven Seagal?" Phones came out. The crowd grew curious. Steven didn't care about the attention. He knelt down to the girl's level. "Remember," he said kindly, "never be afraid to ask for help. Heroes aren't always loud. Sometimes they're just paying attention." The girl smiled shyly, nodding. But what happened next would completely shock everyone watching. Just when everyone thought the danger was over, the atmosphere suddenly shifted. The suspicious man, who had walked away moments earlier, stopped at a distance and turned back. His eyes locked onto Steven and the little girl. Something in his expression had changed. It wasn't fear anymore. It was anger. Steven noticed instantly. He had dealt with enough confrontations in his life to recognize the signs. The man clenched his fists and started walking back. Faster this time. The peaceful park, once full of laughter and calm energy, now felt heavy and tense. Steven slowly stood up, positioning himself protectively in front of the girl and her grandmother. His body language was calm but firm, like a wall that couldn't be moved. "What's your problem?" The man snapped, drawing the attention of nearby people. "I wasn't doing anything wrong." Steven kept his voice steady. "No one said you were," he replied calmly. "You're free to go." The man scoffed. "Then why are you blocking my way?" Steven didn't raise his voice. "Because you came back. That tells me you want something." The crowd started to gather. Some people pulled out their phones, sensing drama. The grandmother held the girl closer, her hands shaking. "I just don't like being accused," the man growled. Steven tilted his head slightly. "No one accused you," he said, "but your behavior was suspicious and you scared a child. That's not okay." The man laughed sarcastically. "Who do you think you are? Some kind of hero?" Steven paused for a moment. "Just someone who pays attention." The man stepped closer, invading Steven's personal space. "You think you're tough?" Steven didn't move an inch. "You don't want to find out," he said quietly. The tension was unbearable. You could feel it in the air. The crowd went silent. Even the birds seemed to stop chirping. The girl peeked from behind her grandmother, her eyes wide. "Please," she whispered, "just go away." Her small voice cut through the tension like a knife. The man hesitated. For a second, it looked like he might walk away, but his pride wouldn't let him. He suddenly shoved Steven in the chest. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Steven barely moved. His feet stayed planted. The shove barely affected him. "You shouldn't have done that," Steven said calmly. The man swung his fist. In a split second, Steven reacted. He caught the man's wrist, twisted it gently but firmly, and used his balance against him. The movement was smooth, controlled, and lightning. Fast in one clean motion, the man was on the ground, pinned, unable to move. The crowd exploded. "Oh my God, did you see that? Is that really Steven Seagal?" Steven didn't hurt him. He simply restrained him. "Relax," Steven said. "I don't want to hurt you. Just stay still." The man groaned in pain. "Let me go." "You will," Steven replied, "when you calm down." Police sirens could be heard in the distance. Someone had called them. Steven looked at the grandmother. "You're safe now," he said gently. Tears streamed down her face. Thank you so much." The little girl ran forward and hugged Steven tightly. "You're my hero," she whispered. Steven smiled softly and patted her head. "You were the hero today. You were brave." The man on the ground stopped struggling. Reality finally hit him. "I didn't mean any harm," he muttered. Steven looked him in the eyes. "Then next time, keep your distance from children." The crowd clapped quietly. Some cheered. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Right now, what would you do? Step in like Steven or stay back? Comment below. Moments later, police officers arrived. They separated everyone and listened to witnesses. Multiple people showed their phone recordings. The truth was clear. The officers cuffed the man and walked him away. He looked embarrassed, defeated. Steven stayed with the girl and her grandmother until they felt calm again. You saved me, the girl said softly. Steven smiled. You saved yourself by asking for help. The park slowly returned to normal, but something had changed. People would remember this moment forever, and what happened next would shock the entire internet. The moment the police car drove away with the man inside, the park felt completely different. What had once been a peaceful afternoon had turned into something unforgettable. People stood frozen for a few seconds, still trying to process what they had just witnessed. Then the whispers started. Was that really Steven Seagal? No way. It looked just like him. Did you see how fast he moved? Phones were still raised in the air. Some bystanders were replaying their recordings. Others were sending videos to friends. The little girl stayed close to her grandmother, holding her hand tightly, but she couldn't stop smiling. Steven knelt down again to the girl's level. You okay? He asked gently. She nodded. I was really scared, but you came. Steven smiled warmly. You were brave enough to ask for help. That's real strength. Her grandmother wiped tears from her eyes. I don't know how to thank you, she said. You didn't have to get involved. Steven shook his head. We always have to get involved when someone needs help. The crowd slowly moved closer. A man stepped forward. Excuse me, are you Steven Seagal? Steven hesitated for a second, then nodded. Gasps spread through the group. I knew it, someone shouted. That's him. No wonder he handled that guy so easily. More phones came out. People started taking pictures. Some asked for selfies. But Steven raised his hand politely. Not right now, he said. This isn't about me. A woman in the crowd spoke up. That man was following the girl, wasn't he? Yes. Another person said, I saw him too, but I didn't think much of it. Steven looked at them seriously. That's the problem. We often see things and ignore them because we don't want trouble. But sometimes silence can be dangerous. Everyone listened carefully. The girl's grandmother squeezed her hand. If she hadn't noticed him, I don't know what could have happened. Steven placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. You raised a smart child. A teenage boy approached. Sir, I recorded everything. Should I give it to the police? Steven nodded. That would help, thank you. The boy looked proud. I'm gonna post it too. People need to see this. Steven didn't stop him. He knew the truth would spread no matter what. Do you think people should always step in when they see something wrong? Type yes or no in the comments. A few minutes later, a police officer returned. Sir, thank you for your help, he said respectfully. Witness statements confirm what happened. That man has a record. The crowd murmured in shock. Steven didn't look surprised. Hopefully he gets help, he said calmly. The officer nodded. And thank you for protecting the child. The girl smiled shyly at Steven. Are you really a movie hero? Steven chuckled softly. Movies are pretend. Today was real. She laughed. Then you're even cooler. The crowd laughed with her. A reporter who happened to be jogging in the park rushed over. Steven, can we get a comment? Steven sighed. I don't want attention, he said. Just tell people to look out for each other. But the reporter insisted. This is powerful, Steven finally spoke. If you see something wrong, don't ignore it. You don't need to be famous to help. Just be human. That line would later go viral. People slowly began to leave, but many stayed behind, still talking about what they had seen. The park had become a place of inspiration. The girl suddenly tugged Steven's sleeve. Will I see you again? Steven smiled. Maybe, but even if you don't remember, you can be a hero too. She nodded proudly. As Steven walked away, people watched him with admiration, not because he was famous, but because he had chosen to act. And within hours, the video would explode across social media, millions of views, thousands of comments. But what happened next would shock the world even more. Within hours, the video from the park began spreading like wildfire. What started as a few shaky phone recordings quickly turned into millions of views across social media platforms. Headlines appeared everywhere. Little girl signals Steven Seagal. What he does next will leave you speechless. Hero in real life, Steven Seagal saves child in public park. People from all over the world were sharing the clip. Comments flooded in by the thousands. This restored my faith in humanity. Real heroes don't wear capes. That little girl is so brave. Steven handled that perfectly, calm and respectful. The little girl and her grandmother sat at home watching the news together. They couldn't believe their eyes. Every channel was replaying the moment. Steven stepping in, the confrontation, the crowd's reaction. The grandmother shook her head in disbelief. All this, from one small signal. The girl smiled proudly. I was just scared. You were brave, her grandmother replied. Very brave. At the same time, Steven was at home, avoiding the spotlight. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Messages from friends, fellow actors, and fans poured in. You're trending worldwide. That was incredible. You handled it with such class. Steven sighed and turned his phone off. He didn't want fame from this. For him, it was simple. Someone needed help. But the world saw it differently. News anchors debated the situation. Was it right for him to step in? Should civilians intervene? Did fame play a role? Experts praised his calm approach. He didn't escalate. He protected without violence. A perfect example of responsible action. Schools began sharing the video as a safety lesson. Teachers explained to students how to ask for help discreetly. Parents hugged their children tighter that night. The girl became a symbol of courage. Tinny hero, smart kid. Every child should learn this. Steven finally agreed to a short interview, but only to talk about awareness. I don't want praise, he said on camera. I want people to pay attention. If something feels wrong, trust your instincts. Look out for each other. That quote went viral too. Meanwhile, the arrested man's story also surfaced. Reports revealed he had previous complaints. People demanded justice. This could have been prevented sooner. Why wasn't he stopped earlier? Authorities promised to investigate further. Do you think this video should be shown in schools to teach kids safety? Comment yes or no below. Back at school, the little girl's classmates treated her differently. Are you famous now? You were on television. You're a superhero. She laughed shyly. I just asked for help. Her teacher smiled proudly. That's the strongest thing you can do. Steven sent a small gift to the girl. A handwritten note. You reminded the world that courage comes in all sizes. Stay brave. She framed it and kept it by her bed. Days passed, but the story didn't fade. Celebrities shared it. Influencers reacted. Millions kept watching. One video title read, "The quiet hero moment the world needed." Steven watched one reaction video quietly. A young man said, "He didn't show off. He didn't hurt anyone. That's real strength." Steven nodded to himself. The girl finally asked her grandmother, "Do you think I'll ever see him again?" "Maybe," she smiled. "But even if you don't, you changed lives." The girl looked thoughtful. "I want to help people too when I grow up." Her grandmother hugged her tightly. Across the world, strangers smiled because of her. Parents taught their kids signals. People started paying attention to their surroundings. One small gesture, one brave moment, changed everything. But just when the story seemed complete, something unexpected happened next, and it would shock everyone once again. Just when everyone thought the story had reached its end, something surprising happened. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after the incident, the little girl and her grandmother were invited to a local community safety event. Police officers, teachers, and parents gathered to talk about awareness and child safety. The girl had been asked to share her experience, not as a celebrity, but as a brave example for other kids. She stood nervously on stage, gripping the microphone with both hands. "I was scared," she admitted softly. "But I remembered what my grandma taught me. If something feels wrong, ask for help." The crowd applauded warmly. Suddenly, a familiar face walked into the hall. Steven Seagal. The girl's eyes widened. "Grandma, it's him," she whispered. Steven had quietly arrived, not announced, not seeking attention. He just wanted to support her. When she saw him, her nervousness disappeared. She smiled brighter than ever. Steven took a seat in the back, clapping proudly. After her short speech, the host surprised her. "There's someone here who wants to say hello." Steven walked toward the stage. The entire room gasped. The girl ran down and hugged him tightly. "You came," she said happily. "I wouldn't miss this," Steven replied warmly. The crowd applauded loudly. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Steven knelt beside her. "You did amazing," he said. "You're inspiring people," she giggled. "I learned from you." Steven shook his head. "No, I learned from you." Then something even more unexpected happened. A police officer walked forward. It was the same officer who had arrived at the park that day. He cleared his throat. "I want to say something," he began. The room went silent. I watched the footage again and again, and I realized something. I was wrong. People leaned forward. I walked past that man earlier and didn't notice anything strange. This little girl noticed what I missed. That taught me a big lesson. He turned to the girl. "Thank you for being brave when adults failed to notice." She smiled shyly. Steven nodded respectfully. "That's what real responsibility looks like," he said. The officer continued. "Because of this incident, our department is launching new awareness training." The crowd applauded. "Do you think this officer did the right thing by admitting his mistake? Type yes or no in the comments." Later, during a break, Steven sat with the girl and her grandmother. "I kept your note," the girl said proudly. "I read it every night." Steven smiled. "Reminds me something," he said. "What?" "Never lose that courage." "I won't," she replied seriously. Reporters waited outside, but Steven refused interviews. "This moment belongs to her," he said. The grandmother whispered to Steven, "You changed her life." Steven shook his head. "She changed mine." Before leaving, Steven gave her a small gift, a necklace with a tiny shield charm. "This stands for bravery," he said. "You earned it." Her eyes sparkled. "I'll wear it every day." As Steven walked toward the exit, the crowd stood and clapped, not because he was famous, but because he showed humility. Outside, someone asked him, "Steven, why did you come today?" He answered simply, "Because heroes should support each other." That quote spread everywhere. Back home, the girl placed the necklace next to the framed letter. She whispered, "I want to help people forever." Her grandmother smiled proudly. "You already are." Across social media, people shared clips of the reunion. Real heroes don't forget. The reunion that made everyone cry. Millions watched again. But one final thing was about to happen. Something that would make this story unforgettable forever. Weeks after the reunion, the story still hadn't faded. In fact, it had grown even bigger. News channels continued replaying clips from the park and the emotional moment at the community event. People all around the world were talking about courage, awareness, and what it truly means to be a hero. The little girl had become a symbol, not of fame, but of bravery. Schools invited her to speak. Parents asked her grandmother for advice. Children everywhere began learning secret safety signals. Teachers made posters that read, "If something feels wrong, speak up." One day, her teacher asked her to stand in front of the class. "Tell them what you felt," she said gently. The girl took a deep breath. "I was scared," she admitted. "But I didn't want to stay scared, so I asked for help." Her classmates listened quietly. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid," she continued. "It means you don't let fear stop you." The room filled with applause. At home, she watched reaction videos online. People from different countries shared how the story changed them. "I taught my daughter a rescue signal today. I helped a stranger after watching this. This story saved a life." Her grandmother smiled with tears in her eyes. "You see," she said, "your small action made a big difference." Meanwhile, Steven Seagal kept his promise to stay out of the spotlight, but behind the scenes, he quietly donated to child safety programs and community awareness groups. He never posted about it. He didn't want credit. One night, he wrote in his journal, "Real heroes don't wait to be seen. They act when it matters." The girl sent him a letter. "Dear Steven, I wore my necklace today. I helped a boy who was lost in the mall. Thank you for teaching me to be brave." Steven smiled as he read it. "That's my hero," he whispered. Months passed, but the story stayed alive. It was shared in training sessions for police, teachers, and social workers. The park where it all happened placed a small plaque. In this place, courage spoke. People left flowers sometimes. Others took pictures. The little girl visited the park again with her grandmother. "Do you remember?" she asked. Her grandmother nodded. "I'll never forget." They sat on the same bench where Steven had been. The girl closed her eyes. "I was so scared here," she said softly. "And now?" her grandmother asked. "I feel strong." Across the world, Steven watched a news report about her. The reporter said, "Not all heroes wear uniforms. Some are just brave enough to ask for help. Do you believe anyone can be a hero? Comment, yes, if you agree." Later, Steven visited a school quietly. No cameras, no media. He stood in front of the kids. "You don't need muscles," he said. "You don't need fame. You just need heart." The kids clapped. One little boy raised his hand. "Can boys cry if they're scared?" Steven smiled. "Brave people feel emotions. That's strength." The boy nodded seriously. As Steven left, a teacher whispered, "You changed lives." Steven replied, "They changed mine." Back home, the girl hung a drawing on her wall. It showed a tiny stick figure holding a shield. Above it, she wrote, "Bravery." She turned to her grandmother. "When I grow up, I want to help people." Her grandmother hugged her tightly. "You already are." The internet still shared the story. Little girl, big courage. People continued learning. Communities became more aware. Strangers looked out for each other. One small signal, one brave choice, changed the world. And that was the real shock. Not Steven's strength, not the confrontation, but the truth. Heroes are everywhere. Sometimes they're just little girls. If you believe courage comes in all sizes, type brave in the comments and subscribe for more powerful stories like this.